Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's November 23rd, 2023, Thanksgiving here in the States. I hope everybody is enjoying their time with friends and family and relaxing some and enjoying life. Uh, Boy, that's important, and to give thanks for all of the blessings that we've had in our lives. I think that's pretty darn important. But anyways, today's video, I'm going to answer a general question about the ponds. I think Michael had asked this a while ago. And by the way, I just a shout out to Michael and Penelope. Michael has been a longtime viewer of the channel and has left many comments. And recently he saved me some of the seeds from one of his winter squash varieties. He has I believe it's a cross between a Green Hubbard and a Marrow winter squash. I believe it's called a Golden Delicious winter squash. Kind of orange, looks like a pumpkin from the pictures he sent me. The seeds look fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael and Penelope, for saving those for us and sending them to us. That's absolutely fantastic. We're looking forward to it. Thea cooked a whole bunch of acorn squash yesterday because they don't have as long a storage time in the root cellar. And I'll try to do an update on the root cellar and maybe one on the greenhouse plants and coop area as well. But in today's video, I thought what I'd do is address the condition and the aspects of the ponds that we have on a property. Right now I'm up here at the corner of the property, the northeastern highest point of our property at 450 foot elevation. And right here is pond 1. This is a kidney shaped pond. It has a marginal zone around the perimeter here. Its peninsula has that large weeping willow right there. These are curly willows that I planted a few years ago from cuttings from our other curly willows. We really like those a lot. I actually enjoy the curly willows more than the weeping willows because weeping willows are just so susceptible to our wind damage here. This one, man, it's been here for years, but each one of these trunks have grown up a few times. So these trunks are not the ones that were here 20 years ago. But what I was going to talk about is this whole section of property, the whole third food forest, and we'll get over to there in just a minute, and that's the area that I was working on, is all hugelkultur pits. So what is hugelkultur? Hugelkultur is an Austrian technique of mounding up wood and piling dirt on top of it, and as the wood breaks down, adds more nutrients, carbon to the soil, and it's a good way of conserving soil if you don't have a lot of soil and growing in an elevated position. So that works out really well. One of the neighbors going by. And I did that for years, but I found that it was difficult with weeds and the breakdown of the wood products shrinking and all. So I decided what I do is bury all of the wood and then cover it up by soil and just sequester all that carbon in the soil. And I knew from the woody material that had been buried on different parts of the property years and years ago, it was beautiful, rich soil in those places. Yes, there were little depressions in the surface of the soil. But I also noticed that there was a lot of water retained in that. Just like in the soil surface here, the deeper and richer your soil is, the more water it can retain. The soil on our property retains more than all the water in all of our ponds put together. And we're going to take a ride around and take a look at the ponds. So pond 1 here, this one has a large area where there's a hugelkultur pit over there in that location over there. And the abundance of life that goes in and out of that pit is just amazing. So it's also an ecosystem. It's a marginal ecosystem zone where the aquatic and mainly the microbes actually go in and out of there, and the fish go into it as well. So it retains water without there being any evaporation from the surface of the ground. I will be talking about over in here in the woodland area over there that I'll be working on potentially next year. All right, so now what we're going to do is going to take a little bit of ride just a little bit further down over to the third food forest area. And we're going to take a ride in Pepe here, so it'll be a little bit noisy. But in order to get through to all the ponds, it would take me forever in the video with me walking. So we'll use Pepe here. And it's very muddy here. It's Mudfest 2023. So when I was digging one of the ponds, we dug 2 ponds this year, and we expanded 1 pond last year. That was pond 7. So we dug pond 8 this year and the new pond on the new property. And Michael had asked, geez, are they spring fed? Meaning that at some point along the base or the margins of the pond that we tap into one of the subterranean water, the water table, where the streams underneath the surface of the ground actually start to percolate up through the base of the pond or the sides of the pond. And we have 1 pond that I'm pretty certain that is spring fed, and that's the newest pond that we dug. However, the ponds, many of the ponds have purposely been connected. So pond 1 has this swale system right here that goes right along the road. So that's our road. Hopefully I'm showing this okay. The road going down there, those are all the blue spruces. So there's a swale that goes down here several hundred feet till we get to the driveway way down there quite a ways. And if you go back in our videos, you'll see that there were other swales that I had cut in across pond, the third food forest over here. This is the food forest area that I had done a lot of transplanting here, just a few weeks ago. All these trees, just about all of them, have been transplanted. So we'll see how that turns out next season, over the next couple of seasons. But underneath this whole area here are hugelkultur pits. And that was about 12 years ago that we put those hugelkultur pits in. About 10 years ago, or 9 or 8 to 10 years ago, we dug this swale system, and we dug small swales that went in across in there. So if you look in some of the old videos, you'll see those swales cut in, and there were mounds. I took down those mounds, but a year ago, 2 years ago, I put woody material in each one of the swales and then covered them up with soil. Sort of a superficial hugelkultur system, not like the big pits, but a hugelkultur swale system in a sense, where woody material is buried in those locations. As I dug down, I dug down into the large hugelkultur pits that were in this area, and it's just loaded with water and broken down dark, rich soil. This whole area, when you go back and look at the flyover that we did, I think 12 years ago, you could see this was nothing but bony gravel up in here when I first started working there. And now we've got lots of beautiful rich soil. So that has worked out very well. So the hugelkultur pits, those big pits that we dug with the excavators over the years, have the woody material and lots of water material. The swale systems that are still intact, they take the rainwater, hold it and sink it and spread it passively into the surrounding area, into the soil. And the soil holds lots of water. So pond 1, over there next season or the season after, I'm going to put in 2 vernal pools and a pond over there in the woods. But we're going to go over to pond 2 first. Might be able to see a small vernal pool right there. I'll be coming in and modifying that area some. So I should have mentioned that Pond 1, although there's no evidence of a spring there, but we have a dug well right next to it. I forgot to mention that. And in that area, although it might be spring fed, it never goes dry. It goes down about 2 feet in depth during our worst droughts and all. This is Pond 2. The house is over there, and there's big swales and sediment collecting canal systems down on the other side of this pond where this pond drains. So this is Pond 2. This is connected to a large hugelkultur pit right over here on this side, and that helps to maintain the water level. This might go down 2 feet as well in total depth during the biggest droughts that we have. Over here, this is all the second food forest down towards the house there. Lots and lots of plants, and that's where all the hazelnuts, the grapevines, the pecans, butternuts, apples, all those apples, rows of apples there, and so on. So this is another swale system that comes off of the one by the road. That's the highest elevation up there. The property slopes down in this direction. That swale, as the water drains off the roadway, it actually goes uphill because the base of the swale goes down at a downward slope, feeds into the hugelkultur buried sections over here, and fills Pond 1. The part from this point here down to the driveway, which that's downhill, it cuts in, drains uphill in a sense, but the base of it is lower. And so that comes in and fills this swale is drained from the driveway as well. That's why it's so much deeper at this end. And then it feeds into Pond 2 here. And the spillway of Pond 2 goes over directly amongst us there. And we've looked at that spillway many times. We've looked at the sediment collecting canals system, which we'll look at part of it when we get down there. But that connects from the road, drains the water off the driveway, brings it around in front of this pond, and then heads down towards Pond 3 in that direction. So we'll be going there in just a moment. If you're not new to this channel, a lot of this will make sense to you as we go around here in the property. So far, Pond 1 and Pond 2 have hugelkultur pits that are directly attached to the bases of the ponds, and they help to maintain the water level. The whole area of the third food forest is all hugelkultur pits, and they hold moisture in those as well. And the old swales, a lot of the old swales, except for the one that goes along the road, have been covered over, but there's woody material in there. And during our worst droughts, when I dig down, there's still plenty of moisture in that soil. So that feeds, we don't have to water any of the trees up here. There's no irrigation system. Now we're going to go over to Pond 8. You can see it's pretty muddy here. So this is Pond 8, and hopefully if you've been watching the channel for a while, you could see that this is one that we dug in the woodland area, and I made a long video about me carefully taking out so many of the dead trees in here, building up the soil in this location. And so this is pond 8. This is not spring fed, but it has gradually been coming up bit by bit. My proposed spillway is over there, which will go down and feed pond 3, which we'll look at in just a minute. But I was hoping, and I just get so darn busy. I was hoping to connect these vernal pools. Well, they're not actually vernal pools, but this is the neighbor's property over here. But you see it's got a wet area here, and it would be ideal to put in a vernal pool over there and drain this water into this area. So for those of you that don't know, I've made videos on vernal pools before, but they're the transitory wet area, like a pond area, that's very important for the forest ecosystem for many of the creatures, including the wood frogs, the salamanders that consume all of the mosquito larvae. They're really, really important breeding spots, and it's a whole ecosystem. I'm really not doing it justice by saying that. But this is pond 8. Really happy with this. This is not spring fed. This is also on a higher part of the property as well. So this will drain hopefully right over there. That's where I planned for it. I did this all by eye. I didn't use a transit. And that'll drain downhill down to pond 3. So we'll go back over there. And I did put some of the vinca vines around some of these rocks. I put these rocks in for sitting rocks around here. And Thea transplanted in our permanent raised beds, handicap raised beds. We grew some foxglove, and so they like the shade. So Thea went ahead and transplanted those over here. I've got hostas that I put in over there. So we'll see. We'll see how this all looks next year. That's it, Kevin. Control the camera. Okay. This whole section in here I'm real happy with. It was so wet and you'd sink out of sight. It's a pretty decent hugelkultur pit I put in here, and a lot of the honey locust trees I transplanted. There's one of the ones that I transplanted. There's 4 right in here, trees that I transplanted from the second and third food forest. But this is pond 3. This is one of the spillways here that drain into pond 3. We'll just go around pond 3. There is an island on this pond. The wood ducks like this, all the wildlife like this. We'll go around some of these tree limbs. There is an underground stream that comes down here, which used to be a stone wall here, which I took out a couple of years ago, and then I refixed this year. And that's where it drains in. Pond 3 here. So this is the first food forest out here, and the honey hut over there. And you can see the driveway I put in several years ago with gravel in here. The soil buildup around here has been building up so much, now the driveway's lower than the soil. I used to have it sloped so it would go in. So here the garden there's a central garden plot where the garlic and shallots are planted over here. The tree totes, the handicap gardens, our bean trellis there. And then over here, first we'll go over here. So from the roadway and from the driveways, they drain down into the sediment collecting canal system here. So this is the sediment collecting canal system here. And so this is about 5.5 feet deep right in this location, but it gradually works its way up to ground level over at the driveway on the other side of the house there. And it wraps around, and in the shallower areas, you see there's a lot more marginal plants. So this system takes all the water that drains from the road, from pond 2, from all the swale systems coming down the driveway, works its way around here. It works through large hugelkultur pits all up through the top part of the property where we already were, and this is a hugelkultur terrace right in here. These are all logs building up the soil right in here, and there's stones holding it back, and you can see the water's running. Hopefully you could see the water trickling here. And this creates another entire interesting ecosystem. With all of these different margins, we have all of the beneficial insects inhabiting these systems. And it's part of the beginning of the bioremediation, but I didn't design this to be part of the bioremediation initially. I designed this so that I could collect soil. So as things break down and they work their way downstream, the sediment collects in the bottom of this, and then I come through with the excavator and I can dig that sediment out, and that's a good soil. But it's anaerobic at that time, so I have to oxygenate the soil and get the appropriate microorganisms to repopulate. But the water drains across the driveway here and works down in to one of the bioremediation canal systems. So this is part of the bioremediation canal system here. You can hear some of the water as it trickles over here. And this connects to pond 3. And again, the water from those locations worked their way down into pond 3, works its way through the bioremediation canal system with the marginal zones, works under the driveway here. And the water's working its way under the driveway, coming through this zone and into this second bioremediation zone here, or third now actually, and then goes into pond 4 over here. And this is all part of the first food forest over here. Everything from various apple trees to cherry trees to here we have hardy kiwis, several different cherries here, apples, and the whole area of the first food forest, which you're probably already very familiar with. And then we go into pond 4, which is right here. This is actually the first pond I dug on the property. And the reason I decided to dig a pond here is I got a tractor stuck here and it was like a big sinkhole. And so I dug this out with a dozer I had many years ago. Then we expanded it some with an excavator. And then about 11 years ago, we dug it out again and I put all the block systems in here. And it's hard to see right now because so many trees and everything's grown up in here. And I made that sitting area over to the side over there. So it's deepest in the center, but there's been so much sediment that has built up over the years. In the next couple of years, I'm going to rework this pond, dig it out again. And I don't believe that this is spring fed, unfortunately. Now this will drain over into pond 5 on the other side. We'll go to there in just a minute, but the marginal zone is very beneficial, helps with bioremediation, creates a habitat for the various organisms and all. But one of the problems is the property sloped down in this direction, but I grew so much, we built up so much soil. So this was all gravel, but I've got about a foot of soil that has built up over the years, which retains more water in the driveways. So that means I got to rework all of our access roads and driveways around here on the property. See, I told you this video could have been really long if I walked the whole way. So hugelkultur pits have done the most, and the swales for retaining water on the property, but it's not perfect. And we'll get over into a couple, because this is all gravel and bony rocks here. Well, let's put it in gear. So I never finished cleaning the equipment because, I forgot to mention this, I had some problems with the beaver dams with the rain that we've gotten recently. So I had to use the Hulk and Elon to get out and back. So this is pond 4, and this drains underneath the little roadway here and underneath the ground next to the gazebo there, and goes into pond 5. However, earlier, a couple weeks ago, I showed we're planting. I don't know if you could see them way up there, but there's a bunch of tree tubes up there, and this is all downhill, but I built up the living fence there, and so that's all on top of hugelkultur pits, and that allows the water to work its way down along the property line, work its way right down here. It isn't rained enough to see it, but it goes here and around the work area, greenhouse, and coop area here. And those are the fig trees over there and the living fence next to the neighbor. But this swale system here, when we get excess rain, it drains into pond 5. There's Quackers, our one remaining duck we've got. So this is pond 5 next to the coop and the greenhouse and that gazebo. There's an island there just on the other side of Quackers there. This is a pond that I did all of a cardboard sealing of this pond. It is not fully sealed, unfortunately. And it's just getting up to the height where it can start overflowing down the swale system, going through the first food forest and then down into pond 6, which is our biggest sandy gravel area that does go dry every year. This one doesn't, it goes dry on our very worst dries, but droughts, excuse me. But it does go down a fair amount each season. So it'll go down a good 4 feet, 5 feet every season. But more, it can go down 8 feet during our bad droughts. So this is our neighbor's property over here. You can see it's quite a, I don't know, you can't never see on the camera, but it's quite a drop off here. So this is all stone wall. So we built a living fence. These are all black locust trees along this living fence. These are all the curly willows. Some of these are the ones I just stuck in the last few years. They grow like crazy. So this pond isn't spring fed either, and there is no hugelkultur pit associated with it, and this is all gravel and stone, really bony ground here, so it drains pretty well, which is a problem for a pond. See if this is overflowing into the spillway now. These spillways help us mitigate any rapid rushes during flood times. Okay, so we have water making its way. Yesterday it wasn't filled up here to this point, but because we got, probably an inch of rain yesterday and half an inch the day before, I knew that the beaver ponds would be a bit of an issue. So these are all the almond forests, and there's pawpaws and mulberries and apples here. Over here is the standard first food forest that you've seen many, many times. And we'll go up to pond 6 here. Geez, pond 6 is getting close to being full. So this is the one that gets dry every season. There is a hugelkultur pit on the other side of this, but this is all sandy gravel material right here. Last season, Dee and I planted all of the bergamot and the ornamental grasses and the I can't think of it now, plants all along the margin here. But this one I've got to deal with. I've got to try and seal this up at some point in time in the future. And there is another vernal pool on the other side of the vehicles over there. That's where the composting is done. This is where the equipment is. And we'll go over to where pond 7 is. Because pond 6, the spillway is here. It's a very wide spillway. It narrows out some, but this is the spillway here that feeds into pond 7 down there. The next couple of days, pond 6 will fill up and it'll dump into pond 7 down here. Pond 7 is the one I expanded over the last couple of years. And I put this marginal zone in, I think at the end of the fall last year, or at the time flies, but I hit a real sand pocket right over here. Now the property drops off really steep. I built all of this up over the years, and so it's leaking over in this area. So this is the lowest. It got down to probably about a foot lower than this actually, but this is the lowest this pond has ever gotten because I got some good sand pits here. Unfortunately, there's no spring for this pond either. This pond drains across the roadway here and goes into the forest before it gets down to the beaver ponds. This is where I planted some English oaks, some fancy pussy willows, these are blueberry bushes. So pond 7, when it gets full, it drains across this roadway here down into a swale system over here and then goes into the forest in that direction. I'll be doing some more work in there in the next couple of years. More vernal pools and ponds. So why so many ponds? Water's life. Creates abundance, soil and water and good clean air. So now we're heading down into the, we're getting close to the area that I had to do some emergency repair work on yesterday. So there are some vernal pools, those transitory wet spots in the springtime, the salamanders and the frogs and the toads all reproduce in those areas. God damn. This isn't good. I came down here yesterday. Damn it. So man, I feel terrible now. So I came down here yesterday because everything was overflowing and we're losing some of our roadway at the upper beaver dam. And I came down with Elon, the excavator, and I packed down some of these lower spillway, some of the lower dam walls that the beaver built over the spillway here. And you can see so much of the work the beaver had been doing. And this is not what I wanted to do. So I'll come down here today and use the excavator to rebuild this spot right here. I don't want the beaver to have to, they're getting time for winter, and I suspect that part of the second year family has moved over into this area here. This was a canal I dug in, then they started taking over the whole area this spring and summer. And you could see the difference in the water level. The water level goes right up to the tops of those sticks that they cut off. So I did some rescue work yesterday, and the reason that the beaver built this whole thing up. I squished it down some yesterday, but there was obviously a weak link right in this area here. So I got to come down and plug this up. That's terrible. That's why all this water's going down. And unfortunately, there's probably a whole bunch of fish that get down in here too. Dang it. I've got to open this up next season to make it easier access when something happens with the dam and the fish make it over, so they can make it down into the lowest beaver pond down there. So I got to come down today and fix this. So that's one of the problems. We had the rain, we had breaches of our roadway. We'll go over and take a look at that too. But this affects the lower beaver pond and this new area that they put in. The water pressure, when it gets real high with large volumes, and there's a weakness in the dam, that creates quite an issue. So it affected the whole water level right along in here. So the water was rushing down here yesterday, and so this is the upper beaver pond here, and it was breaking through an area that they cross all the time. Last year I posted videos with the beaver crossing right up here, and this was starting to create a rip across here. So I got Elon and the Hulk out, and I took down stone wall, because this was, you couldn't drive across here. We could make it across with a four-wheel drive, but there was a chance you'd get stuck. But this was all dug out. Let's see if I can get the camera. This was all dug out in here from the water ripping through. You can see I put a lot of stone in here yesterday. I made multiple loads of stone wall, filled this in. The beaver can still go up over it, make their way down, and this whole side had eroded away. So you could see where they got over here overnight. It's packed down. That's their bellies rubbing up along in there. So they can make it up and down in here. But I was afraid that this whole pond would drop down a few feet as it ripped through, because there's a good almost 6 foot change in height between here and there. And you can see it is porous, because you might be able to see the water running right down there. But all along this wall here, it is porous and the water runs through it. But it had ripped through here, going across here, and working its way down here. There's another spot I had to patch too. We'll check on that. So by fixing that breach in the dam over the spillway, that'll raise the water level up in both of those areas. Sorry about this, trying to get this camera. So when you have large volumes of water, even though it will appear very passive, when it starts eroding through an area, it can create tremendous erosion and increase the pressure, the velocity of that water flowing through that, and can blow out a dam wall. It just is deceptive how powerful the water is when you have a large body of water behind a wall that isn't as intact as we think it is. So these are multiple spillways along here. We're going to go up and look at the other section where the roadway is. These are all man-made ones that I put in to allow the porosity. You may be able to see it here. Water running down over in here. Now this is much better than it was yesterday. It was really rushing down here like crazy yesterday. So you see the water running right here. And we might as well just go on up and look at the newest pond I put in last month. That I cut and split the firewood recently in a couple of videos with the Wolf Ridge log splitter. This part is part of the roadway I put in a year ago. Then we're going to get into the new roadway I put in as I dug the new pond. This is the transition phase here, right at this point here, that we're going up into a new roadway. This we'd never be able to get this vehicle up here last year. It'd be all way underwater. So this is the new property. I had taken down some buildings over here and worked on this fall. This is the spillway, which has ended up working out very, very well, keeping the water from flowing across here. Now there's a lot more landscaping work that I've got to do, but the water works its way down the spillway You can see the water running into it. And this is the new pond that I put in 1 month ago. It took me several days to dig this out. First, this was all forested area. Had some big rocks around in here that we went ahead and we found. I had to find those first and then dug the pond out. And the spillway is over there. This pond actually is spring fed, so there is some water coming up from the ground level as well here. So there's work to do in the future on the other side of this, but I'm real happy at controlling this water so far. So we do have some, this has really helped to improve the groundwater here. There's a lot more to be done on the property to make it so that the ground isn't so saturated during the dry times that some of our tree species won't make it, because we want to reforest all of these areas around in here. And when the water is completely saturating the ground, it creates an anaerobic habitat, and many of the species that are native to this part of the country won't tolerate that. So this has been longer than I thought it would be. That's our pond systems that we've got so far. There's more work to do in the future. Today I got to get down there and patch the damage to the beavers' dam across the spillway there. I never want to remove their dams. I just want to control it so it doesn't do damage to our roadways as well, property destruction. So that's it for today's video. I hope everybody's enjoying their beautiful Thanksgiving holiday weekend. I hope everybody drives safely on your way home and all. Do it safely. Take good care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye-bye now. And thanks so much for watching. And thanks again, Michael and Penelope. Bye-bye.